I think I've done all my little button pushing. Greetings to any of you who are here for the first time. And to Kat, who is with child, so to speak. No, I didn't mean it in that way. To Kat, who is accompanied by a child to her left side, external to her body. That's okay, yeah. I didn't. I meant no implication by that. So, I have a very short poem from Hafiz this morning, 15th century Sufi mystic. It happens all the time in heaven. Someday soon it will begin to happen again on earth. That people who give each other light often will get down on their knees and with tears in their eyes will sincerely speak, saying, "My dear, how can I be more loving to you? How can I be more kind?" It happens all the time in heaven. And someday it will begin to happen here again on earth. That people who give each other light often will get down on their knees and with tears in their eyes will sincerely speak, saying, "My dear, how can I be more loving to you? How can I be more kind?" And right now we practice that with ourselves. How can we be more kind? How can we pay attention to this that we take to be ourself in ways maybe that have never happened before? So let us come to sitting. Let's notice that the body is here in a particular posture. There's pressure in the buttocks and thighs. Contact. There may be sounds. The noisy neighborhood dog is barking off to my left. I don't know whether it comes through the microphone. There's life here. Let us remind ourselves, reflect, contemplate, taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In a certain way, that's utterly simple. Notice that there's life in the hands. And know that this is what you're doing. This is what's happening. Awareness is receiving the sensations in the hand. This is the refuge in the Buddha. Notice the mood that's present. being willing to accept what is actually presented to us rather than some fantasies, is refuge in the Dharma, in the way things are. And refuge in the Sangha. Here we are, providing loving support for each other. And recognizing that we are embedded, utterly embedded, in the life of all beings here on the earth, the greater Sangha. And so our practice is actually for the benefit of all beings, of all kinds. As we take responsibility for the greed, hatred, and ignorance, which is at the root of all suffering. Each breath appears. There is this expanding of the chest and abdomen, the rising to fullness. It rises all the way to fullness and then declines and then vanishes. And we watch it do its journey. There are all the objects of mind. There's the body. Legs, hands, face, back. Warmth, cool. It's alive. And somehow it's known. And the knowing is consciousness. And the body has sense doors. Eyes that respond to light. The nose that responds to chemicals, particulates. The tongue that responds to tastes. The ear to sounds. The body to touches and sensations. And the mind that receives thoughts and images and plans and memories. All day long, all week long, all lifetime long. There are pleasant and unpleasant and neutral experiences. These are also objects of mind. They can be observed. And there's mind states, a contracted mind, an expansive mind, a mind that's colored with greed or hatred or jealousy or love or compassion, mercy. And there's all the phenomena that occur. The actual seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. The impermanence and so much. There's so much to observe. And it all does the same thing. It comes into being. It does its dance in the sunshine. And it disappears. And so we are cultivating the capacity to let everything be as it is and to be awake. And to support us on this journey, we have the breath. It comes in and it goes out. And so with great kindness, great persistence, let us abide here in the present moment, awakening from the wandering minds of all kinds as we rest here in this breath. Meditation is the practice of intimacy. It's possible to pay attention to the body and the breathing and all of one's life as if it were a distant idea. We've learned to do this, many or most or all of us, by going to school for so long, learning how to live in the mind. Also, because of the pain of living, we've learned how to live at some distance from our direct experience because of trauma. And so we dare to fully incarnate, to actually come into contact with our life. To notice each breath in its beginningness. In its rising to fullness. And as we pay closer and closer, more intimate, more loving attention, in a certain way it becomes more real to us. Not real as a story, but real as a true experience. This is this experience right now. Time and again, awakening happens. In the middle of a wandering mind, in the middle of a familiar obsession or a worry or a plan or a daydream, some story of self-evaluation or judging someone else, some rehashing of a conversation or reflecting on the news. Please be merciful. These wandering minds don't have to go away. They go away all by themselves. But you don't have to get rid of them. Instead, we use all of them for the cultivation of wisdom. This moment is like this. Exactly like this. In a certain way, love and wisdom are synonyms. In love, there's room for everything. And in recognizing there being room for everything is wisdom. And what is it that makes us wise? It's this capacity to see everything coming into being and disappearing. And despite its contingency, its instability, still engaging fully. Wisdom is the recognition that that which we take to be a self is a collection of thoughts. And still engaging fully. Wisdom is the experience that life is a process. We never really arrive. We're always in passing. So therefore, the satisfaction we crave eludes. Yet still we engage fully, more and more fully all the time. In a few moments, this time of being like this will come to an end. And then what we think of as the day will lie before us. A collection of present moments. There's a great power in intention. What is it that I intend for today? What do you intend for today? One possibility is to intend to be mindful all day. Not struggling to concentrate on something, but just to notice this is what's happening right now. This is the day. This is the moment. And I'm going to close this morning with a reading from a teacher of mine named Matt Flickstein. It's from a letter. I'm going to read the first couple of paragraphs. It's called, not a letter, it's from a short article. It's called Living from a Non-Dual Perspective, living from an awake perspective. Everything that arises disappears. Whatever is born dies. Nothing escapes the cycle of birth and death. It is important for us to directly and experientially realize that there is never a point in time when something exists and is not in the process of becoming something other than it was just a moment before. All suffering comes from clinging, trying to hold on to that which is perpetually changing, and all clinging comes from delusion. We must learn to live in the clarity and space of non-clinging, neither grasping nor pushing anything away. The key is to just be present with what arises from moment to moment, with neither holding nor resisting. At the same time, it is essential not to fall into the trap of denying the relative existence of our psychophysical organism and the world of experience it presents. Compassion is the willingness to play in the field of dreams even though you are awake. Approach life with joy, enthusiasm, love, and an open heart. Take delight in the manifestations of life. It is all a play of consciousness, and it really is all play. If something appears serious or burdensome, even death, then we are lost in delusion. The field of dreams is this world of the senses with all its myriad forms. Being awake is the direct knowing there is no one who suffers, no one who's born, and no one who dies. It is the five aggregates that are born and die. Who we are has never really been born and never dies. Please come home to your living aliveness, to the body where it touches the chair, to the breathing, notice the state, the mind state right now. And using memory, remember perhaps how different it is now than it was just a few minutes ago. When we notice the effects of our practice, it then helps us to be motivated to come back. Noticing now the life in the face, in the cheeks and the lips. Take a moment to let your tongue touch your lips. Huge amount of sensation here. There's a vast amount of brain tissue devoted to the tongue and the lips. The tongue and the lips and the thumb and the forefinger. Huge representation on the brain surface. And now bringing awareness, allowing awareness to open again in the eyes. And then now letting the eyes open. Open and seeing. Isn't that something? Seeing. Or maybe instead of fine, detailed seeing, what you get is light patterns. Seeing depends upon a lot of conditions being met. That reading from Matt Flickstein you would find in the chat. If you want to, you can save the chat easily too. Down on the bottom right-hand side, there are 3 little dots, and if you click those dots, you can see Save the Chat. So here we are. I'm taking a moment to look from picture to picture and taking some delight in our sanganess, our togetherness. So, Sunday night, Kendall Summers is teaching at PIMC, and on the website you can get the information. And there's I forget the name of it. She sent me. She does these groups that extend over time. Let me grab it. It's quite lovely. Kendall. Here it is. Those who are part of the fabulous, fierce females, they meet this Friday evening. I think it's a closed group, but I just love the sound of it. Fabulous, fierce females. It's her several weeks women's gathering. So, and Doug Pullen is this Saturday. There's a day-long or morning till 2 o'clock, some hours of practice, which I highly recommend, particularly if you haven't done it ever before, because you discover something really rich can happen when you spend a little while doing this. And Darcy, be sure to check your chat for ukulele information above what I posted to the group. All right, friends, anything you'd like to share? Any questions? Songs of joy? Rhyming couplets.
It's Joe.
Hello, Joe.
I just wanted to let you know how grateful I am for a simple email that you sent because it led me on a path of kind of bureaucratic ups and downs. But in 2 weeks, I probably won't be at Sangha because I will be at Brighton Bush lending a hand.
Oh, that's going to work. Good for you. Good
Yeah.
for them.
So, well, thank you. And
You're
it
welcome.
was quite a lesson. I actually had some sleepless moments about the ins and outs of doing this thing. And right when it seemed like there were barriers, I let go and it dropped away, just like Brighton Bush Magic always does. And everything's going to be just fine. So if I am not here and have no reception up there, I'll just sit before I go out and do my daily thing. But I'll keep you with me while we're toiling away. Thank you for your help, my
Wonderful.
friend.
You're most welcome.
A kind word in the right ear is never wasted.
Well, I know Peter lit up when I said that you were trying to do some volunteering, so that's great.
Yes, I'm excited about it too.
Don't forget your sunscreen.
Hey, Robert, good morning. It's Randy.
Hello, Randy.
Hey, I got a question for you. How does one get to Hollyhock, travel wise? Do you fly into Vancouver?
Well, you can walk, and then you have to swim. the The easy way is to fly to Vancouver and then Campbell River. And then from Campbell River, of course, on a normal year, they have several thousand people make their way from Campbell River to Hollyhock. And what it requires, two ferries and some vehicles. So if you're on your way to Hollyhock, there's a shuttle you can take from the airport to the landing to the water. And then you can take the ferry, and then there's a taxi that meets you that takes you across Quadra Island. And then you're on the ferry to Cortez, and then they meet you at Cortez. Or you can take a water taxi. There's these people. There's a whole world of the way of people that live there in those islands, and there are water taxis. These incredibly powerful, high speed aluminum boats, and also there's a lot of logging and mining up in there. So there are these boats that you can get on. They're wonderful to ride on, and they zip you across to Cortez Island in half an hour or so. The other way, of course, is to drive. It's a 2-day drive. It's not very many hours of driving in a way, because where the time comes in is the ferries. So you drive to there's two different ferry routes across, but you got to get to Vancouver Island somehow, and then you drive up the island, which is a gorgeous drive, and then you go from Campbell River to Quadra to Hollyhock or to Cortez. In the
Thank you.
summer, I've always taught in the autumn, but in the summer you can fly to Seattle or drive to Seattle, and then there's a float plane that takes you into Cortez, which is would be really fun. That was more than you needed, I'm sure.
No, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Robert, along that line, this is Pamela.
Hello, Pamela.
Along that line, if you drive, can you take your car all the way to Hollyhock, or do you need to leave it
Oh yeah,
somewhere?
yeah. You drive into their parking lot.
Okay.
All up the coast, there are ferries. I mean, all those islands, not all of them, obviously, but they're ferries, and they run on. I think the final ferry, the ferry to Hollyhock runs to Quadra, to anyway, to the final ferry runs 5 times a day or 6 times a day, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A fun fact it just has really attracted me. When I was in my late 20s, I sailed from Seattle on a sailboat that I was living on all the way up into Desolation Sound, which is that area.
Great.
And so I'm kind of interested in just for that. No, not just for that, but
it's
for
exquisite.
that.
It's exquisite territory with big tides.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Big tides and yeah.
Robert. Good morning, it's
Hi,
Sherry.
Sherry.
Yeah, I think if one were to go to the Hollyhock website, there are very clear instructions about how to get there.
Yes, thank you. You could also drive to Lund on the mainland. I've been there many times I've done kayaking in there, and you could kayak across to Hollyhock. I've grown to really delight in these long silences. They're wonderful practice. They parallel an experience that I'm very familiar with, and I've talked with many people over the years that something similar happens. Have you noticed how you look forward to something? You create in the mind that, oh, this is going to be terrific. And maybe there's impatience. And then the moment comes and maybe it even actually is terrific. And then it's gone. And it turned out that event wasn't an arrival. It wasn't a destination. It was another arising and disappearing. And neither the run-up to it nor the disappearance of it in the rearview mirror is really, in a certain way, that different than the event itself. Because it's all phenomena arising and disappearing. And so when we're sitting in silence, over the years, it's been emerging for me that there's no urgency for someone to speak. Because when they speak, they'll speak, and then that will happen, and then it'll be silent again. It's a strange, the more we live in the present, the more this, what would be the word? We just stop demanding for things to be a particular way.
Robert, Chris from McMinnville.
Hello there, Chris from McMinnville. Hi.
Yes. When you were speaking yesterday about perfectionism and how we all struggle with that, I was reflecting on and something that happened with myself at Christmas. My son had moved to Germany for a job, and as soon as they moved, they went into lockdown. And so the experience wasn't quite what they were hoping for. They're still there. But anyway, I decided to make them a quilt. And so I got the quilt entirely done, and it had like 24 blocks that you arrange in a pattern. And I realized the 24th one was a quarter turn off when I got the quilt entirely done. And I was like, so almost like devastated that the perfectionism in me was really, coming out. And I lost a few nights sleep. I thought, oh, do I take it? What do I do?
Yeah.
My dear friend Marcia, who's also on this Zoom. Hi, Marcia. I was walking with her and I'm telling her the story about this. And she said, well, Chris, the Navajos, she told me the story of the Navajos and how they intentionally make a little mistake in whatever they make to let the spirits out. And it was like, I looked at it in a whole new way, and I just got over it, and it became something kind of special. And
fantastic.
Interestingly enough, the pattern I had chosen to put the quilt blocks in a certain design was called Navajo. And so anyway, I thought, well, when I'm long gone, my son and his wife will look at the quilt and see the little mistake and remember me. So I look at it in a totally different way, but it was kind of interesting how, that perfectionism came out, and I was just so frustrated that I got the whole thing done. And
that's absolutely beautiful. You know, many years ago, I installed an in-ground hot tub in my backyard, and and of course one should install it square with the house, but it didn't occur to me. And then I got it all installed. I mean, really dug in and pipes and everything. And then I suddenly realized it wasn't square to the house. And I brought my wife and my mother-in-law. They came as a package deal. And I said, look at this. And they couldn't see it. I took a 12-foot 2x4 and put it on the edge and look, and they couldn't even see it. And I'd been tortured. It was torture. It was quite isn't it something? How an attitude can create such anguish and then it can be gone?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Do they have the quilt now? Did you send it to them?
I did send it to them, and they love it, even with a mistake.
It's such a gift of love to spend all that time creating something for them like that. It's beautiful. I have a quilt that my mother made. I also found a couple of shirts that my mother made for me. They don't fit anywhere near fit, but they're. I mean, she spent time in them. So thank you.
Robert?
Hi, Tim.
I have kind of a similar related thing. One of my great mentors as a musician was a guy named Bill Kennedy, and I played with him for many years. And something that he would always do when the band was playing everything perfectly and not making mistakes, he would sabotage that. And it was frustrating for a lot of people. But as soon as you learn the tunes, and we played 2 or 3 tunes without a mistake, then he would intentionally he would do things like change keys in the middle of a song, or change songs in the middle of a song, or change the tempo, or do something to throw that perfection off, because he considered it to be dead. He considered it to be, this is not what we're here for, is to recite this thing perfectly. That's what record players are for. That's not what we do. You want to hear the song perfectly, by the damn record. You want to hear us play, come hear us play. But it's nice. That way it was alive. Yeah. He partially learned that trick from Miles Davis, and he partly figured it out himself. But when Miles Davis went into the studio to record Kind of Blue, I think, one of the greatest jazz records ever, he hired a band, and he refused to tell them anything about what they were going to play. He wouldn't tell them the key. This is totally not done. And he said, no, when I tell you to start playing, start playing. And that's how that entire album was done. And it's a total classic. Beautiful. But that was his methodology, to keep this stuff alive, as opposed to we're just a second rate phonograph machine, not good enough. Right. So, kind of along the same line.
That's lovely, actually. And that's really true in the meditation. We're not trying to get, we may be trying to get control of things, but when we really begin to fly, when the jazz really starts pouring out, it's when there's simply presence with whatever is. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else have anything you'd like to share this morning before we head on into our adventures of the day? Our next adventures.
I have a question, Robert.
I hear a voice.
This is Daria in Northeast Portland. I'm new to the Sangha.
Hi, Daria.
Hi. So relative to what you were reading at the end of the meditation, I'm curious about the non-dualistic nature of these meditations and how you, how we experience that? That's a big question, maybe, for the last couple minutes of this. So we could maybe revisit it another time, perhaps.
When there's simply knowing, we tend to say, I'm knowing. But in fact, then it becomes clearer and clearer. It's not that I'm knowing. There's just awareness. There's just knowing. And my training comes very much from the Theravadan Buddhist background. And where one starts with, I have a human mind, I'm suffering, I want to do something about it, so I'm going to develop the capacity to concentrate on breathing. And so there's an I, and I'm going to get concentrated. I'm going to work at taming my mind. And so that's a relative practice. There's a self, and I'm going to do something and improve myself, my life experience. And that then evolves as we mature emotionally and psychologically, I guess, where we're really just allowing things to unfold and being present for whatever happens. And that's more of the non-dual orientation to practice, if that makes any sense, if it's helpful at all. But whenever there's striving, whenever there's a goal state, that's, of course, a dualistic practice. And it's not that the relative and the absolute, the dualistic and the non-dual, exist. They're opposite ends of a paradox, and they're both real in a certain way. Speaking of which, it reminds me, I have a favorite Buddhist document, which is the third Chinese patriarch of Zen. I'm forgetting the document right now, but if you go to my website, robertbeatty.com, and scroll to the bottom, you'll find there's a picture there that says the Great Way. And that's a beautiful non-dual statement, but it's done to music and also with incredible photography, time-lapse photography from all over Oregon. Sam Forench is one of my students, and he's the photographer for the Blazers. And he created these videos for the state of Oregon. And then we did this collaboration. Anyway, that's a long way of saying, check out my website. It's a beautiful non-dual statement. Thanks for your question. How nice that you're outside. Are you in Portland?
Yeah, I'm in Northeast Portland. It's a little chilly out here today, which I welcome.
Yeah, it's going to get plenty warm. Okay. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert. It's Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
I've been wrestling for the last couple of days with the difference or the sameness between desire and intention. I have the desire for chocolate a lot. I also have the desire to deepen my practice, maybe come to Hollyhock. So the intention, the base of intention is desire. Can you clarify that for me?
Mm-hmm. Desire is well, they're both very natural parts of us. I'm so happy. I had that brain surgery a year and a half ago, and my sense of smell disappeared pretty much completely during that brain surgery. But it's come back. And one of the losses of not having the sense of smell, the olfactory sense turned on, was dark chocolate. I mean, a really nice piece. I don't mean, there's this stuff here in the States. What's it called? I forget the kind of chocolate. Anyway, it's just terrible. But anyway, a fine piece of dark chocolate. And then when you exhale, it goes, it's so rich. So when exposed to that, or many other scents, or many other visual objects, something naturally arises that we would call desire. There's an orientation of consciousness toward it, and there's a wanting for it. So that's desire, and without desire we wouldn't survive as individuals or a species. So it's not that there's something bad with desire. The issue with desire is that we think that it will satisfy us. And so we can get caught in an endless pursuit of greater and greater desires. The average new house built in the United States now is twice the square footage of what it used to be. And so on. And so we're consuming the earth. We all desire. But the desire arises. How do we get to the satisfaction? How do we get to the acting out on the desire? That's another aspect of mind, which is the intention. I have this desire. I'm wanting. I now intend to reach for it. And that intention, that's where we break the karmic circle. That the intention arises. Here's the desire, and now here's the intention. Shall I initiate this intention? Shall I follow through on this intention? My arm is poised to reach. I can even feel it in my arm, but shall I reach or not? And so that's where intention exists, and that's where we can interrupt the desires that we don't want to pursue, that we don't want to continue follow the level of intention. I desire, I'm angry and I'm hurt and I'm wanting to strike out. And here's my intention. Here's what I'm going to say. Out to push send. And, well, is that what I'm going to not do it? Does that make sense? Is it different?
But not when it comes to the desire to deepen my practice.
Oh, I see. You're asking a different question than I heard. I asked my teacher Manindra this once on a road in India, and he said that there are some wholesome desires, particularly, and the desire to deepen your practice. Why not intend and follow through on that? And then in the end, I remember him saying this, in the end, the desire for awakening, which can drive one crazy, it can be so driven, the desire for awakening, think of it like a thorn. And you use one thorn, the desire for freedom and awakening, you use that thorn to take out all the other thorns, and then you drop that thorn. So it's still a desire. There's a desire to suffer less. And that's a desire that leads to freedom in the end. And in the end, we give that up too. Okay?
Thanks, Robert. It didn't work when I was in the store because as I went to the cashier, I saw the Toblerone bar and I bought one.
Well, it seems like a relatively harmless desire. Toblerone is pretty good chocolate.
But I don't like to cling, and that's a huge thing with me. I hang on to things. I hang on to pictures. I hang on to
right
things. And I know it's another thing. I quit smoking 50 years ago. I don't drink anymore because I took the precepts. And so I don't like the idea of being caught by chocolate. It sounds simple, ridiculous, but that's just...
we can, how do I say this? in our practice of renunciation, which is a practice of freedom, which is deciding I'm not always going to fulfill the desires that I won't always go to Amazon every time I want to. So you can pick something like chocolate and say, okay, for the next month or whatever, I'm going to push the edge of this a little bit. I'm not going to eat chocolate for a month. But do it playfully and see what happens. And then maybe at the end of the month, I get to have a Toblerone bar, or maybe two, or because we're experimenting with setting these boundaries. And we set the boundaries in order to create some tension, so we're not just robotically fulfilling desires.
Yeah, I've done that, and then the desire overtakes me. But I see it now as almost a reward for getting through something difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a fun experiment that I like to carry out. There aren't that many of us left on here, but please raise your hand if you have any addictive or compulsive behaviors that you know you would probably be better without. Look, we all have them. Yes. And it's normal. But we all think, oh, I'm a bad person because I can't control that. It's just, some things like cocaine and crack and cigarettes, there's alcohol. There's these things that can be very, very destructive to us, but we're going to have some I think Toblerone is a very good exception to to discipline.
Sure, when you're pre-diabetic.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm pre-diabetic, and that's, I should be careful here what I say here.
Try not to take myself so seriously, right?
Boy, that's a good idea. Yeah. Well, friends, anything else we should speak of before we go? We have any kids who want to sing? And Joe puts up his hand, of course. Why not? So let's go out on Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. May all beings receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Goodbye, dear friends. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks, Robert.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be with you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye, Tim.
Robert.
Bye, Sangha people.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Are you prepared for the leap to hyperspace? Here we go.
Beam us in.
Goodbye, friends on Facebook.